ITNation Connect 2024 was last week. It's the Monday after. Huge success. Largest MSP event of the year. So many new announcements. So many new exciting things going on. We had a great time. We had Podcasters Row for the first time ever at an MSP event, by the way, not just ITNation, where we had 9 podcasters set up in their own area, in a high traffic area, just having conversations with attendees, MSPs, with vendors, with ConnectWise staff. Just a wonderful event. Ushering the new CEO, Manny Ravello, as Jason McGee exits, and lots of great new product announcements. I personally had a speaking session there as well, which was a great success, how to help MSPs in sales and marketing with podcasting. There was great after parties with Universal and Stone Temple Pilots, and Tony Hawk spoke, and it was an incredible event. We recorded many conversations, and the following is one of the conversations, and they were all great. It was a high traffic area, so they might be a little noisy, but just a great event. I encourage everyone to consider going to it. Thanks so much for listening.
Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. I found myself at 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. I took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People ask me, how'd you do it? What's the secret? I need to lose weight. How'd you do it? How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport.
When I was on the Jon Stewart show.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was interviewed by Rob Corddry.
I know Rob. Wow.
Do you really?
I know who he is. I never met him.
Okay, yeah.
I certainly know who he is.
So when we did it, we had to literally be, our knees were touching.
Wow.
We were sitting that close to each other, and there was a camera there and a camera there. And there was no table, and literally there was maybe an inch of space between our knees when we did the show.
Come a little close.
Yeah.
And when did you interview Rob Corddry with on the Daily Show?
It was when I had launched the Schick Quattro Razor, and it was this whole big thing about the razor wars and all of that type of a thing.
What's really the razor wars?
So Gillette owned the market.
Okay.
I was at Schick, and we had launched the razor. I led the U.S. launch, and it was like a big deal for someone to go after Gillette. So we came out with the first 4-bladed razor.
First 4-bladed razor.
And that was, everybody was
I remember this.
Fun of that. Yes. You have to look it up. It's pretty funny.
Yes. And so you came out, but they gave a comedic slant on the Daily Show?
Oh, gosh, yes.
So was he polite? Was he?
Well, I had to play it straight. I wasn't allowed to laugh.
And he was snarky?
Yeah, he was snarky. If you saw it, there's a part where there's a video, and there's they took my face and they superimposed it on a drawing, and there's me shaving Rob Corddry in the drawing that they put together.
His
which
face.
I did not expect. No.
His head? Oh, jeez.
Yeah. It was embarrassing. So, but the whole interview, I had to stay completely straight.
Right.
I wasn't allowed to laugh, and I could just kind of nod and play it,
Did you go to their studio?
No, we were at an office in New York City, and I remember it was an on-location shoot because they wanted us to be at an office.
Oh, wow. And so, but your Schick is in Connecticut.
Schick is in Connecticut.
And so you came here. Did they make a phone call? We want to talk to somebody about this.
We had a PR agency, so it was the biggest launch that Schick had ever done, and I was in charge of it.
Wow.
So we put together. We had a 30-second commercial on the Super Bowl.
Whoa.
I was big time back then.
Is there still 4? Has the technology increased? Have we gone to 6 or 8?
We have not. I think we
4
maxed it out at 4. It gets to the point where the head of the razor is so big, you'd be like, doesn't really work.
And when you're part of testing that, what happens when you're product testing a razor?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have to go through. So at that time, I was in brand management, which means you're there from innovation, product concept, market fit, and then the actual launch. So the launch is the last stage of that whole process.
Wow. And that takes how long?
In that case, it was lightning fast because we wanted to get it out in the market. And we were afraid that the competition was going to come out with a razor, a bladed razor before we did. And we wanted the first to market advantage.
A week, a month, a year? When you say lightning
no, it was
fast?
probably from the time that they gave go on the launch, we had about 3 months to put together a plan and launch it.
Wow.
But the innovation behind that was probably, I'm guessing, 6 months to a year.
Wow. What did you learn about that? What would you do or not do again about launching a major product?
It was an amazing experience. You know what honestly did better than we ever anticipated was the PR.
Really?
And that was the first time that PR played a kind of crucial element in a marketing plan. Prior to that, it was all the normal marketing kind of, stuff, the day in, the day out of everything that you do in consumer packaged goods, from digital to TV advertising back then. But in that one, PR was, because there was just the razor war and all of that. So we were it was in the Wall Street Journal. We were voted, I think, the #2 launch of the year behind Apple.
Wow. What year was this?
Advertising Age magazine. Oh gosh, it was a long time ago. They're going to date me.
2000s?
Date me. Might have been late 1990s. Yeah, I think it was late. No, probably early 2000s.
Early 2000s. You were just a kid.
I was a kid. I really was a kid.
Yeah, yeah. And you had some mentors there? Were there a lot of good people?
There were some great mentors there. I'm trying to remember. There was Al was the CMO at the time, and I remember Adele was there. He was the VP of marketing, and they were amazing mentors.
Really?
Yeah, it was that was the nice part about it, is that I was classically trained in marketing and sales at consumer packaged goods companies. So that helped a lot.
What's the difference between marketing and sales, Amy?
Oh, in technology companies?
Overall.
The reason I ask him about the technology
why is it different?
Is because sales is responsible for numbers, and marketing, in my mind, supports sales. So the purpose of both is to deliver numbers. It's just that marketing is the front end of the process and sales is the latter end of the process. So you have to have the entire process working well in order to make sure that everything happens. None of it can fall down. You can't have great marketing that goes into an inefficient sales process, and you can't have a great sales process that doesn't have any leads.
Because often in technology, working with these smaller MSPs, I'll just hire somebody to do sales and marketing. That's their mentality. And it can be done at a smaller scale, but eventually it's tough to do with one person.
Yes. Eventually, I mean, first of all, those people are unicorns to really have. I kind of a very unusual background in the fact that I've risen through the ranks via marketing and sales. You don't see that a lot.
Right.
You usually see someone who's a marketer and you see someone who's a salesperson. And so what I wind up doing is a lot of time bridging the gap between the two. But in technology especially, I would say marketing has to feed into sales. And that's the way I genuinely look at it. So a lot of times I'll come in and I'll kind of oversee both and report into the CEO, or there's other times where they might have, let's say, a really good salesperson and then some mid-level marketing people, and I'll come to expand the skill set and the bandwidth of the lead salesperson, that sales manager or VP of sales.
So your approach to marketing and sales, Amy, is it more science or arts?
Oh, it's always art and science.
Art first.
Science and art.
So give me a percentage.
Say science and art. 60-40.
Of art.
Yeah,
What's 60?
60% data and metrics, 40% experience in art. Because strategy is art. And that's something actually that makes me think about it, because that's something that it took me a really long time to figure out. Like when I used to think about strategy, and that's what I consider myself a strategist. I used to think about strategy as kind of linear thinking. And what I got to is I realized, because sometimes I'd be thinking about something and the idea just wouldn't come. And I'd have to put it away and I'd have to do something else and I'd have to come back to it. And then all of a sudden the idea was there and the strategy would dawn on me and then I'd start moving forward. And what I realized is that strategy is a creative process. So that's the art portion. And that's why for me, that art portion is a hefty 40%. But then you have to marry that with the data and metrics, because if it's all art and it's all feel and gut, even if you're highly experienced, you're not doing good decision making.
Wow.
And so I kind of look at it as you have to bring both to the table. So if someone asked me, what do you need? More art, more science? I'm still going to say both.
Because you need a certain foundation of facts, and then you rely on your gut to complete it.
Correct. I mean, the fact is, data can be sliced and diced.
Yes.
You know, so if you want, you know, I'm pretty good with data. So tell me the story you want the data to tell, and I'll be able to slice and dice it to give you that story. So there's the art of making sure the data is accurate, that it's clean, that it's recent, and that's accountability. There's a lot that goes into that. And then taking the data and knowing what to look at and how to interpret it. To me, people always say, like, oh, she loves numbers. I don't love numbers. I like numbers. What I like is the story that the numbers tell you. The numbers, if you can take the numbers and create a story out of it, the story is what tells you how to move forward. And that's the part for me that I love. When I start to get numbers and I'm like, oh, we need to do this or that, that's fun to me.
Yeah, you light up as you say it.
Yeah.
So you get all this data, and then you create a story from it, and story is the art.
Yes, I call it the so what.
What's the so? Explain.
The so what. So I have all these numbers.
So what?
Yeah, I have all these numbers. So what? What are we going to do differently because of the information that we now have in hand? Are we going to start something? Are we going to stop something? Are we going to do more of something? And that's actually the first thing that I do when I work with a client. We'll come in and we do an assessment. And the thing that I say is that'll take 2 to 3 weeks. And at the end of that, we deliver insights and implications. None of it's sexy. It's not a big fancy PowerPoint. But what it is a working session, a collaborative working session, where I'll talk about, this is what I'm seeing. These are the trends I'm seeing. This is what I'm seeing from a numbers perspective. And this is where I'm leaning in terms of what I think you should do moving forward. And that's where we start to have a back and forth. And they'll say, well, gosh, this doesn't align with what I was expecting. This might be different than what I anticipated. This completely makes sense to me, and that's a great point. And we kind of go back and forth, and then we use that information and that collaboration to put together a plan of how to move forward.
Do you approach general solutions and problems in life the same way?
Ooh, that's a great question. I think I probably do. I think the business definitely leads over into personal. And probably sometimes I have to kind of turn that off and be like, okay, like, just be a normal person.
Like, for example, I'll just pull this out the air. Decision like to go back, leave and go home early and just have some salmon or something like at 9 o'clock at night. That kind of decision. Randomly.
That sounds like a me decision.
And then, so you're tired, the data's there, I want to be great for tomorrow.
I do.
I have something that I'm going to eat. This is all planned.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much is impulse?
Personally,
yes.
Probably not enough.
Really?
I'm pretty focused. So usually it's funny because the people that I wind up hanging out with are usually the people who bring out the impulse. So even in college, like my friends, they were fun. And so I wound up gravitating towards people who brought out the fun in me. Because left to my own devices, I'll lock down and focus.
Were you voted any superlative in high school?
Oh gosh, that's so embarrassing. So on the business side, I was president of my high school marketing club.
Of course you were.
Of course you were. And then on the personal side, I got nicest smile, which was very nice.
I could see that.
Yeah,
yes,
that was
a
nice.
beautiful smile.
Thank
So
you.
in marketing club, what was it?
Oh, you're going to all the embarrassing
Explain,
moments.
like, what do you guys market? What are you talking about?
That's a good question. So we actually had, the reason I got voted was so embarrassing. We had national marketing competitions. So you actually had a
Ah.
district competition, then you had a state competition, and then you had a national
That's
competition.
awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I won my district competition,
Whoa.
and then I won my state competition,
Whoa.
and then I went to nationals.
And what are you marketing? Do they give it to you then?
It was a lot of role playing. So there are different aspects of marketing, and you'd go in. They would have like classes and learning and all those types of things, you know, educational components. But then you had the competition portion, and what they would usually do is they'd give it to you a certain amount of time before you'd go in with the judge. They'd give you a role play situation, and you'd have to role play it. I probably should have figured out then that I was decent at sales. Because
Did you know the difference?
No, but I mean, anytime you're doing something like that, you're selling.
Certainly
You
are.
know, I was selling a marketing topic, but I was selling my approach to that marketing topic. And so I mean, as I'm looking back at it now, and it's literally dawning on me at this particular moment, I
Right.
should have realized that I would be decent back then. But I have to say, I got to national competition,
How'd it go?
and I lost focus there a little bit.
Why? Cute guys? I mean, you're in high school.
He was such a nice guy.
Oh.
He really was. I mean, like super, super nice from Montana. And I kind of did the competition. I was like, I'm good.
Wow. And you knew beforehand what you're going to market, or do they give it to you then? Like, how does it?
No, you had like a couple of hours to prep for it.
I see.
At most, I think it was. So you kind of got the situation. You had maybe a couple of hours to prep what your approach was and how you were going to answer it, and then you were just on.
And there's judges, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think the one that I remember, which is the last one, is you role played with one judge and then they scored you.
What in the last month or so, 4 or 6 weeks, have you changed your mind on anything?
I've changed my mind on conferences.
Elaborate.
Being focused and on the quieter side. The person who goes home at 9 o'clock to have dinner.
Not every night. You came out.
No, I do, yeah. But I both look forward to and I dread them a little bit. But being here, I've made so many connections with amazing people. And if you look at it and you just take each situation and treat it as an individual situation, that aspect of it has been amazing. And I could not have done that without being at these events. So I met you and got to know you by being here. Yeah. And that never would have happened unless I had been here. So I'm appreciative of those opportunities.
You know, I go to a decent amount of shows, and I'm always like, why do I need to go to this? I mean, it's within hours that I'm at it. I'm thinking, okay, this is the reason why.
Yes.
You're reminded very quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not just new meetings. It's just seeing somebody again and refreshing. And because nothing really replaces face-to-face.
Exactly. It's funny because I used to have the same experience back when I was doing consumer packaged goods marketing. And we used to do focus groups. And I hated focus groups.
Why?
Oh, because you'd be there for 2 or 3 days, 8 hours a day, in a dark room with bowls of candy in front of you, tempting you, and one of those two-way mirrors or one-way mirror, whatever it is.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And watching people talk all day. You didn't really move. Like, so for me, it was hell. And so I would always go into it like, oh, I got to do this. Who knows if something good's going to come out of it? And within hours, watching people actually talk about the product that you were marketing or selling, I always got something where I had something I said, I'm going to stop, do more. I'm going to start something or stop something or do more of something based upon the information that I got in there. And I feel like conferences are much the same way.
They are. And they're just so necessary, especially this one. So we're here at ITNation. We're in Orlando, 7,000 attendees. MSPs everywhere, like 190, 180 vendors over there. What are some of your goals this week?
My goals were to meet people who may want to work with us. But one of the things that I've learned throughout this process of founding my own business is don't look to get something out of every interaction. Look to deliver value in every interaction. And when I founded the business, I called it the mental and emotional equivalent of jumping off a cliff. It was scary. I didn't have a client. I have 2 kids. I got a house. All that type of a thing.
Yeah.
And I decided to make the leap because I believed very strongly in what it is that we do. And So with conferences and like being here, I just look at every time I have a conversation with someone, deliver value. So even when someone says like, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so, they're potentially looking to engage with you and, bring you on, that type of thing. All I do is I go up to them, I tell them what's going on in your business. And then they'll start talking to me about this challenge and that challenge. And I take away the engagement aspect of it. And I say, and we start brainstorming. I think you could do this. You might want to do that. And usually the outcome of that conversation is either they walk out with 2 or 3 free ideas, which I'm totally happy with. And I've got a contact and a networking opportunity that, who might refer me to someone else. Or they say, hey, I walk away 2 or 3 good ideas and I'd like to engage you. And then we have a conversation from there. But it's so easy. It's not selling.
Right.
Like, I mean, that's the thing. That's one of the things that I like the most about what I do is because I believe so strongly in it. I never feel like I'm selling. If it's not a fit, it's not a fit. And if it is, fantastic. I'm ready to go.
And some examples of the way you can help MSPs here or anywhere is?
The thing that I say is I look at revenue as an ecosystem. And so what we were talking before about that full funnel from initial strategy that drives lead generation, that drives conversion throughout the sales process, revenue and profit at the end of the funnel. And that's what I'm looking at. And so what I kind of consider my superpower is looking at that ecosystem, identifying the places on which we should focus, and then putting together a plan to tackle all of those areas in a effective, efficient manner.
Wow.
So the thing that I say, so sometimes people ask me like, well, who's not a fit? If you're just looking for something to come in and address one thing, I just want to generate leads quickly. It's more about delivering those short-term results, but at the same time, building an infrastructure that's going to generate long-term sustainable results as well as those short-term results. And that is what I bring to the table that's different.
So I think you know my story. I'm not sure. I started my MSP in the 90s, was working way too hard, got up to 340 pounds. Doctor says to me, if I don't lose the weight, not going to see your daughter graduate. Spend the next 6-7 months, lost about 130 pounds. People ask me how. I always say discipline. I got routine. I got willpower. How does discipline play a role in your life, Amy Rome?
Oh my gosh. It's funny because I've been asked that question and I say discipline is my greatest strength and my greatest weakness. Your greatest strength is usually your greatest
strength. It sure is.
So I am very disciplined about my focus and my schedule and my eating habits and my exercise habits. That's part of it. That makes me able to walk into a room and feel confident. That's just part of how I create the me that you see sitting in front of you.
Yes.
And so, but then at the same time, I think too much discipline can be a hindrance. And there are times that I've learned, and this has come with age and experience, that you kind of have to let things go. Like even we were just talking about the strategy. When I was younger, I'd rail my head against it, saying like, I got to figure this out now. I've got to figure this out now. And sometimes what that means is I actually have to put it away and go for a run. I have to put it away and go have a drink and, come back at it the next day. And so that's something that I've learned with growing wiser and older and coming with that.
Walking away sometimes is so important. One of the big things that changed my life in the MSP is when I joined a peer group. So I would travel, be in a room with these people, 12 companies, but I'd be away from the business. And you could look at it easier from the outside.
So you can work on versus in the business.
Exactly, yeah. And even when I'm tackling a particular project, sometimes I'm just looking at it for too long, too hard, PowerPoint deck. You need to walk away.
Yep. Without balance, that's the thing that I learned is that I have to have a certain level of balance or my mind just doesn't work as well. And so I think, especially as you get older, you learn like you have to feed the machine.
Yeah.
If you want the machine to keep working for you, especially if you're asking it to do everything that that we ask ourselves to do each day, you got to have the stuff that taxes in the machine and you have to have the stuff that feeds the machine.
Sure
And
does.
so that's something I've learned. And then I also think as you get older, it becomes a non-choice. Like you have to do it. Otherwise, it just says, no, thank you. I'm not going to do this anymore.
It's fascinating to take on discipline being a strength and a weakness at the same time. There's no wrong answer there. You know, it's so true. I have this ongoing theory that discipline is a spectrum. And my particular take is this 10 elements, but it's always amazing to me the way people think about discipline itself. What motivates you, Amy?
It's a good question. When I was younger, I would have said I was just inherently a perfectionist. But I wouldn't say that now, because it's one of the things that I've learned over time is definitely progress not perfect. I mean, I was just talking to a client about that the other day because we were revamping a process, and they're like, well, there's that situation and this situation. And I'm like, well, does the process fit 80% of what it is that's coming through the door? They're like, yeah. Then I said, then we should move on this, and we'll deal with those kind of side situations as we get this up and running. Because I wanted to keep things moving so that we could deliver results. Sorry, what was the question?
Motivation.
Yeah. So I'd say I have an inherent drive for excellence. And I think there's a difference between perfection and excellence. Perfection is you want everything you want all the boxes checked. And you're looking at it and making sure that you didn't make a mistake. And the thing that I tell my team now, so for example, I was talking to my project manager the other day, and she was worried about running Asana and whether we had a deadline that was off or that type of a thing. And I said, remember, our job is not to run perfect projects. Our job is to deliver results for the client. And if a project slips here and there, or the timeline changes for some reason, as long as that doesn't negatively impact results, it's our job to manage that and be okay with it. And she got it. And it was a great conversation. But that's something that, you don't know that when you're first starting out. So I'd say excellence, but it's excellence in terms of the output, not making sure that everything in the process is perfect in getting there. Because the thing I always say, like, especially with revenue, it's like making sausage. You really don't want to see the process as long as the outcome is good.
Yeah, excellence is a fascinating area because it's certainly subjective. You don't hear it enough, though, in business. Excellence. That's a very, very interesting take.
I'm kind of an all in, all or out, go big or go home kind of a person.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it well. It's a strength and weakness.
What don't you like? So given that motivation, how do you measure success?
Numbers.
Really?
Yeah.
Give me an example.
Well, actually, no, that's not true. I would say, numbers, it's at the end of the day, my job is to deliver top line and bottom line. If I do everything else well and I don't do that, people are not going to be happy. That being said, one of the things, and this is actually, I'm glad you asked this question. It was one of the greatest compliments that I've ever received in business. And I still remember the person who gave it to me is when I was working at Sharing Plow. And what he said was, Amy, you deliver numbers. And he said, but a lot of people deliver numbers. The difference is that when you deliver numbers, you take the team with you. And that, to this day, is still the best compliment that I've gotten in business. And I spoke to a client the other day about it because I said, listen, I'm not going to deliver any results. What my job is to give you the guidance, the tools, and the processes, and the inspiration to enable you to deliver results. And so one of the things that I've learned throughout this, I might talk about process and we might talk about technology to our clients and everything, but the fact is it's all people driven. And if you have the best process or you have the best software tool and the people aren't using that and they're not inspired to use it in a way that's positive and accountable for using it, doesn't matter.
So in the marketing process, you talked about 60% being science, 40% being art. Which part do you enjoy more?
I'm a strategist at heart. But that being said, data feeds into strategy.
Right. You can't do it without it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's why when I was in high school and president of the marketing club, my goal, and I thought this was a very ambitious goal, was to be a product manager. And the reason I liked it was because I was reading about it in the marketing textbook, and it basically sounded like being a CEO in a mini scale. So a product manager, your job is to put together all the aspects behind that product to deliver a P&L. So you have to make sure you are working with the sales team well. You have to have all your marketing messaging there. You have to be looking at what's happening from an operations standpoint. You're managing a P&L. And so at the time, I thought to myself, my gosh, I could be a product manager. Because remember, I'm the first person in my family to go to college.
Right, me
so
too.
This was an ambitious goal back then. And I thought to myself, if I could do something like that, where you're dealing with all of these different facets and where your job is to kind of bring them together in a way that delivers results at the end of the day, that was really appealing to me. What I didn't realize was that at the end, I actually wanted to be a CEO.
You had entrepreneurial pursuits.
I think it was wanting to create and drive towards a vision was something that was really appealing to me. And so I think at one point in my career, I was going to found a business one way or another.
What was the epiphany that happened there?
I think it was confidence. I think up until then, I was often the right-hand man. And that felt comfortable for me, where you had someone who was creating and driving towards the vision, and I was so they were the visionary and I was the integrator. Which you want to talk EOS.
Yes, EOS, yeah.
And I was very good at putting together a process, driving process, holding people accountable to the process, and integrating, inspiring the team, bringing the team together, saying, yes, let's focus here and not focus there in order to achieve the vision. And then it took me a really long time to gain the confidence to say, you know what, I can do the vision as well. And that was a big one.
Was it a particular project? Was it a particular success that brought you there? How did you make that realization?
I think it was when I started becoming the right-hand man. And I started working closely with CEOs, and where we would have conversations and they'd be coming to me and asking my opinion. And it started to make me think of myself differently.
Interesting.
And so when I started to look at it, and when we were kind of having conversations and brainstorming as equals, and and they would start to ask me questions about what to do, I started to think to myself, okay, wow, I'm really delivering value here. I'm able to speak on their level on the places where I have expertise. And that kind of changed things for me. So I was lucky to work with some really great people.
Absolutely. Talk about one now. So Jim Kennedy hired you at the MSP there in Danbury, Connecticut.
Yes.
Kind of give you your start in MSP community.
Yeah.
What's so attractive about MSPs to you?
Oh gosh, of everything that I've worked in, and I've sold or marketed everything from hair color to yogurt to razors and blades to antifungal medicine, allergy medicine. MSPs are by far, I consider, one of the most difficult business models. And I'm a glutton for challenge. I just love tackling things that are difficult. But the pace at which technology changes, the breadth of what an MSP is responsible for, how integral it is to the operations of a business, the repercussions if you don't do your job well, the pain of getting someone to switch from one MSP to another MSP, which leads to long sales cycles. All of those are so unique.
Wow.
But at the same time, I think that's what makes it beautiful. Like if you can do this well, that's amazing. And I love the feeling of accomplishment that goes along with that, of having a really difficult challenge and still being able to succeed.
What are we talk about some of your goals here, but you've got such great background. You've got such great ways of helping MSPs.
Thank you.
What do you see happening? Do you see AI helping? Where do you see technology in the MSP industry going?
From a sales and marketing standpoint?
Yeah, from your perspective.
It's funny because I look at it, I always say crawl, walk, run. And when it comes to sales and marketing, I would consider like getting to really heavy AI and all of that. It's the run phase. And really what we have to do is block and tackle first. And so where I see most of the issues, it's more in the crawl walk phase. And it's about getting the basics right. So the thing that I say is you got to have your core playbook and be executing that well before you start developing trick plays. And what I usually wind up focusing on is that core playbook, doing the blocking, tackling, the day-to-day hard work, and getting that right.
There's so much to be said about that. Yeah. So we're in kind of a small area here. Is it a little too claustrophobic for you here? Is it? Is there
Okay.
Is there enough space?
I'm focused and I've got discipline.
Yes.
So I'm okay
That's
with
all
that.
it
And it's a
takes.
big room.
It is
so
a big
I
room.
think I'll survive.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
When the back of the plane, when everybody stands up and you can't get out, like
Whoa.
I literally in my head. So I sit in my seat quietly when it happens, but in my head, I'm just moving people aside and running down that aisle.
That's so funny. I just have earbuds in and I'm in another place. I'm listening.
I use those too, and they calm me. I'll play a game on my phone, but it's mental discipline at that point for me.
It sure is. Yeah. Thank you so much for your time today, Amy Roman. We'll make sure in the show notes to put your LinkedIn to get if everybody wants to contact you. Thank you so much and have a great show.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated the opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Joe.
Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypinz.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations.